Welcome to Gritty Life Devotional. As always, I'm welcoming you here with me. We are going to take a little break this week from Genesis because I want to continue on the thought of God regrets. I talked about last week that God regretted in chapter 6 about regretting making mankind, and I said there was two other times in the Bible where God regrets, where it talks about the God regretting. So if you didn't see that video, go back and watch that one first because there's some nuggets in there you need before you watch this one. So taking a week break from Genesis, and we are going to just talk about the two other times. So for this study, you need to read 1 Samuel 15. So you can pause the video, read that quick so that you know what we're talking about. But 1 Samuel 15, God gave Saul an order in verse 3 to take Amalek, but not to spare anyone. He said, wipe them out. But we see in verse 8 and 9 that Saul spared the king and all the best of the land. Now, his men did it, but he allowed it. So he disobeyed God. 1 Samuel 15, 10 through 11 says, Then the word of the Lord came to Samuel, who was the prophet, saying, I regret making Saul king, for he has turned back from following me and has not performed my commands. And Samuel was grieved and angry with Saul, and he cried to the Lord all night. So in other words, the prophet was upset. You see, Samuel loved Saul like a son. He was very sad to find out that Saul had disobeyed what God had said. He also regretted finding out this information. But it says that God also regretted making Saul king. And only the 3 times in the Bible does it say God regretted something. We talked about Genesis 6:6 last week, that he regretted making man and was going to wipe him out in the flood. And now it happens again in 1 Samuel 15:11 and 15:35. But we have to understand that human regret and God's regret look very differently. You see, humans regret things when they find out something or something has been revealed to them. So, for example, I regret to inform you of a death. I'm sad to say I found out someone died and it makes me sad. I regret a bad decision. As I look back at things, having all the information I have now, I regret what I did. Human regret is based on having new insight or new information. But the word of God says in Isaiah 46:10, declaring the end and the result from the beginning and from ancient times, the things that are not yet done, saying, my counsel shall stand and I will do all my pleasure and purpose. So in other words, it's saying that God knew the end even before he created us. He knows all things. So he knows what was going to happen. So if God knows the beginning from the end, how can he regret something he already knows will happen? We talked about this last week. We said that the word nachem is the word that was there. It's a Hebrew word, which means to sigh or breathe strongly, implying to be sorry or sad. So when we talked about it last week, we were saying that God was sad that the people still chose that choice. So when we read this story with this thought, it means that God's regret looks different than ours. It means he knew what would happen and was just sad that Saul, again, still chose to rebel from God, or the people of Noah's time chose to be sinful. This regret comes from a loving father. He's just sad he can't make the right decisions for them. He's sad that despite all the good opportunities he presented, all the instructions he gave, that one would still choose sin or disobedience. In 1 Samuel 15, God had given Saul a commandment of what to do, and he didn't make sure that he obeyed quickly. God is very clear about disobedience. 1 Samuel 15, 22 through 23 in the Amplified Version says, Samuel said, has the Lord as great a delight in burnt offerings and sacrifice as in obeying the voice of the Lord? Behold, to obey is better than sacrifice, and to hearken than the fat of the rams. For rebellion is as the sin of witchcraft, and stubbornness is idolatry and teraphim, or household good luck images. Because you have rejected the word of the Lord, he has also rejected you from being king. Now, we may think that our ideas are better than God's. Saul thought that his ideas were better, but he calls this attitude stubbornness and says it's equivalent to idolatry. Idolatry. Why idolatry? Because we are idolizing our own desires, our own ideas, and exalting them above God's command. Because Saul rebelled and didn't obey, God rejected him as king from then on. And I wonder how many times we are guilty of offering God an unacceptable sacrifice, meaning we come back later and here you go, forgive me, instead of just doing what he's told us to do. And when we do this, we often try to blame God for something that really is our own doing. Saul being rejected as king was due to his own disobedience, his own pride of thinking his ideas were better or than what Samuel had instructed him from the Lord to do. And we can often forget that we must be open to hear what God has told us to do and quick to obey. You see, God requires prompt, complete obedience, nothing more and nothing less. So some things he asks us to do may feel impossible, may feel strange, may feel below us, but God will help us to do whatever he commands us to do. We simply need to be taking time to listen and then obey. You see, God will provide us strength, abilities, and wisdom to handle whatever he commands us to do. So today, let's choose to be quick to repent, even quicker to obey, so that God never has to write about us that he regrets or is sad about our disobedience. Thanks for joining me. We'll get back into Genesis next week.